during the day, but hopefully it won't take too long. The history of the engagement between the Victoria and the federal government on funding for Melbourne Metro. So could you just take us through that as a preliminary statement?
Well, I don't have a chronology with me. I'm happy to try and provide you with that if that would assist.
Well, but even if it's without the actual dates. So we had, because we've ended up, there was a request from the Victorian government. I mean, you've talked through it today. I just wanted to have it summarised.
Well, essentially, as the Victorian government took office and made this their number one priority, they, in commissioning this project, did seek Commonwealth funding support.
And how much support did they seek from the Commonwealth at that stage?
I would have to check, but they certainly did talk of amounts of 50-50 funding for projects like the tunnels and the stations.
So in the order of $3 to $5 billion, given it's a $10 billion project.
It was of that order. The Commonwealth engaged in identifying, as they developed their business case, where the Commonwealth may be prepared to invest. The next stage from the Commonwealth was really around identifying our views that there need to be more planning, particularly on the city shaping aspects, and the Commonwealth did offer $10 million to Victoria. The Victorian government came back rejecting that offer. And
10 million, so it's a very small amount of money.
But to complete some of the critical planning work which we felt needed to be done, to also identify options for financing of the project, utilising things such as value capture and the like, where you might be able to use some of the land development. And essentially that's where the matter now sits. Victoria is proceeding and has announced that it will fully fund the project.
So since that rejection of the $10 million, Victoria haven't proceeded with requesting any further funding?
I'm not aware of any further requests from funding since that point. I think the Victorians would obviously welcome any Commonwealth investment in the project, but at this stage, in terms of our negotiations on the $3 billion funding package, which we discussed earlier, and the $877 future investment, we've moved on to talk about other projects.
So do you see any likelihood or any scenario in the future where the Commonwealth could be putting money into Melbourne Metro?
Well, as I said, at this stage, the Victorian government has announced its intention to fully fund the project itself through a combination of funding mechanisms. Should the Victorian government seek to make any further approach for funding, then the Commonwealth will obviously consider it.
Okay, and in contrast, and the Melbourne Metro project is now identified as one of the Infrastructure Australia high priority projects. Yes. So if the Victorian government did come back to you to seek funding, it would be seriously considered?
It would certainly be considered, but as I say, the Australian government would need to have a look at that as opposed to other projects it may wish to fund in Victoria.
But in contrast, so in terms of any future Victorian government that wants to build the East-West link, the government is guaranteeing that there'd be $3 billion.
They have made that commitment, yes.
But that's despite the fact that it's the Melbourne Metro that's on the high priority project list, and that the business case for the East-West link showed a return of only 50 cents in the dollar for any money invested into it.
I don't think that was the final assessment by Infrastructure Australia. In fact, I'll come back to a question that we're going to come back to Senator Stirl on. But essentially, the Infrastructure Australia assessment of the East-West came in with a much higher value than that in terms of the final business case. But essentially, that is correct. The Australian government has a commitment to a future East-West road link, which remains on the books.
But the benefit-cost ratio for Melbourne Metro, I understand, is higher than what the final benefit-cost ratio for the East-West link was?
That may be the case. I need to refresh my memory on that.
But the government, nonetheless, is more committed to funding the East-West link through that, putting that $3 billion on the table.
It maintains its commitment to the $3 billion for East-West, and also, as I said, is talking to Victoria about other projects at the moment.
So given it's maintaining that commitment to $3 billion, even though you've got a government that's not asking for it, I mean, does the federal government see the East-West link as being a more significant or more urgent project than Melbourne Metro?
I think the government sees both projects as being required for Melbourne.
But you could see that the community would think that given you've got that standing offer of $3 billion, even with a government that's not wanting to take it, that the view would be that the federal government would see the East-West Link as being more significant than Melbourne Metro.
I think it's fair to say both projects are regarded as important. The Australian government believes its funding contribution to the East-West would advance that project, which is equally required.
You could similarly have some of that money on the table for Melbourne Metro, to say, Victorian government, we want to give you money for Melbourne Metro because we see it as a city-shaping project. You know,
that's a potential construction of it.
yeah,
I can't comment beyond saying what the Australian government's position is at the moment.
Eventually,
Okay.